Hi there, I'm Rai, one of the technicians at 4x4 AT, and today I'm going to show you how to fit this lovely carbon fibre steering wheel to our Ranger Wildtrak Ranger 23, and these are the tools that you're going to need. Now we do have some lights here. We don't need them in this situation because obviously we're in a studio and we've got enough lighting as it is, but to help you I would probably advise some lighting. A knife just in case we need it, a impact driver because it's going to speed it up and going to make your life easier. So for the steering wheel bolt we need a T50, we also have a 10, a 12, a 7mm and a quarter drive with a T15 on it. Half-inch ratchet, a T8 Torx bit for the steering wheel, soldering iron, wire strippers, wire cutters, solder, some electrical tape if we need it, and a heat gun as well. You could use a heat gun, I've got a blowtorch here, but you could also use a heat gun, and some little bits of heat shrink for our wiring. So we're going to go from the factory looking steering wheel, which is like this, to that carbon fibre steering wheel. Now this is one of our ex-demo ones, so it's not going to come with this stripe on it, but is what we're going to do is transplant the stuff over from our original steering wheel to our new one. So that's going to involve, which we'll talk about later, is going to remove this panel. We're going to take this transport cover off and put basically everything factory into this new steering wheel, which is going to change the look of the car immensely, and it's absolutely amazing. So we'll get on with the install. Right, so you join me inside the car now. Obviously this is a factory steering wheel, but is what we need to do before we do anything is to make sure the steering lock is not on the vehicle. We need to disconnect the battery. If the steering lock goes off, which is electrically controlled, if that goes off, we're not going to be able to turn the steering wheel. So what we want to do is, we've got the key with us, just turn the ignition on, make sure that that is free, turn the ignition back off, leave the key now inside the vehicle, and now we're going to pop the bonnet and disconnect the battery. So we'll do that now. So for safety reasons, obviously we're dealing with an airbag, we are going to disconnect the battery at the negative and the positive terminal. So we've got a 10mm nut here that just needs to be backed off, and then if we flip this up as well, we've got a 12mm nut here that also just back it off so we can lift that off. Set them out of the way so they can't touch. So we're now good to move into the car. We're safely disconnected there. So from inside the car now, we want to pull the steering wheel, the column adjuster. So we're going to pull the steering wheel towards us and up as high as it'll go. From there, and then going to pull this lower trim panel down, which does have a hinge on it. So if you pull from this corner, it will be tight, but it does come. And then we want to fold that down. So that's then going to give us access to the 7mm bolts that are under here, because we need to remove this trim, which is going to gain us access to the back of the steering wheel to remove the airbag. So we'll remove these, 3 of these. So we'll remove the cowling, pull that. That's going to fold down, and we want to fold that up. Next, we're going to need our pick, one of our tools, and we're going to turn the steering wheel 90 degrees one way, and then from behind we're going to lift the tab up, which is going to release the airbag on one, and then we're going to do the same again. We'll turn it 180 and remove it. This is why we need the steering wheel lock off. So now we'll turn the steering wheel 180 degrees, and we're going to access the pin in the opposite side to release our airbag. So we'll turn our steering wheel now back to straight, and we can remove our airbag. So relatively straight, and pull the airbag forward, and undo two clips that are located at the back of it. One is for the airbag and the other is for the horn. Yellow being the airbag, and our top one is the horn. When we do take the airbag out, for safety, we need to keep the airbag like this, refrain from dropping it, and keep it somewhere safe. We're going to remove the harness from the clock spring, which does the steering wheel controls, and then we're going to unplug the heated steering wheel connector as well. So this one up here, just push the tab down and pull it towards you. Same on this one, but this one, the tab's on the side. Pop it in a bit, pull it towards you. So we've now got that disconnected, and we just need to be careful when we're taking the steering wheel off that we don't damage this cable for the airbag. So next we're going to remove this T50 bolt here. You might need to hold the steering wheel at the same time just to crack it off. So we'll pull the steering wheel towards us, and we just need to let this cable guide through that hole for the airbag. So we're steering wheel off. We want to keep this clock spring straight. There is a little marking here. If you just line these two, keep these two lined up and refrain from trying to spin it, because that could damage the clock spring. So, but we'll take our steering wheel out and we're going to start the transfer. So we have the steering wheel side by side here, and what we need to do is transfer these buttons from this steering wheel to our new one. We also need to do the same with the wiring harness, and the connector for the steering heating element needs to go over to our new one, so we'll trim that one down there. But before we do that, we're going to take out 6 T15 screws which are on each steering wheel. So we'll do that now. So we have 2 on the inside and 4 on the outside to remove. Turn it over. 4 are located here. So from here, we want to turn the steering wheel over and unhook the harness from the back clips. One there, and there's one in this corner. That, turning back over, and lift our cover off. This is going to go on the new steering wheel. Turn that back over. Now our front panel will just come off nicely. So set them aside. We're going to do the same thing again on our new one. Okay, so we have our frame out, and now is what we're going to do is do the same again on this steering wheel. So we have our 2 screws in here. Turn that over, remove the 4 screws from here. So we're going to remove this transport cover. This is one that we're going to replace with the factory one. So you can see the 2 facial panels next to one another, and those are the buttons that we're transferring over, as well as this harness. So we'll flip that over. Now in here we have some T8 screws. They're very small, so try not to lose them. Okay, so we've removed our small screws. Now there's a little tab on the side that you just need to pull out a bit, and then the part will come out. So we'll do the same on the other one. They're removed. Now the only difference is we're unplugging the harness on this one. So unclip there. Bit tight, unclip that. Same on this side, unclip that. Bring that over to the new one. And same again, set this part out here. So pop him into our new one. Little audible click there. The T8s can go back in. Tight, but not overly tight, because you can strip the threads, so we just want to be careful when we're doing that. We are just nipping it up. So we have our harness in place. We have the two connectors here, and this is the one that's going to go into the clock spring, and that one is the one that goes into the horn. So just leave them two there. Pop this one in here. There's a little clip underneath there to go in. Same on the other side. Pop in there. And click that in. So we have our two steering wheels again. Is what we need to do now is transfer this connector over to this one. We have a positive, negative, and two blues on there, which is the same on our new one. These two here are for the car's monitoring system to monitor the heating in both sides of the steering wheel. It doesn't matter which way around we put them, but our positive and negative does matter. You could use either heat shrink after we've soldered these, or electrical tape. Entirely up to yourself. So if we leave 2 inches off of this, roughly about there, and now we need to remove this loom tape from the factory one, so we have plenty of wire to strip back to solder onto these. So once we've cut our wire off, we need to expose our wiring for soldering. So we're going to strip our ends, our wire strippers. So on our new steering wheel, they already come pre-stripped for us, and we're just going to join these wires to this. But prior to that, do have some heat shrink. It's pre-cut to slip over these. Again, you could use electrical tape. It's entirely up to yourself, as long as those wires are not touching any metal. So we'll bob them on there first. So our connectors, black to black, red to red, blues to blue. Doesn't matter which way around you put the blues, just as long as you've got blue to blue. So now we have all our wires wrapped up in place. We're going to solder them now. Hard solder these. I'm going to use a gas soldering iron. You could use a 240 volt one if you wanted. A gas one, just if you use a gas one, just make sure you're careful with the way which way your exhaust is pointing. Make sure it's not pointing at any leather or any of the carbon. So once all our joints are soldered, we can now slide our heat shrink over, and then we're going to use the blowtorch to heat shrink all these. So we've got our heat shrink on there. We're now going to heat that up and finish that off. So we have all our joints covered, and now use some electrical tape to cover all those wires up. So we've got our wire all connected up. We'll move that out of the way, and we're ready to bring our front facial panel over. Pop that on and push into position. So, and then there's 2 lugs down there, they want to line up there. We'll flip it over, and we're going to fit the back panel of our original steering wheel. That'll go on there. Just when you pop that on, just make sure you haven't got any wiring that's trapped in there. That'll push on. So we've got our back panel on now. We want to put our 4 T15s back in. Again, we're not going too tight that it breaks something. So we're just going to check them all to make sure we're happy. Again, not overly tight because you will strip the threads out. So flip him over, and then we want to put our last two in down in these two positions here. Get our second one in. So our steering wheel is now fully built up, so we'll move into the car and fit that now. So we're ready to mount our new steering wheel. The airbag wire needs to come through the top hole up here. So we'll feed that through there, and then we're going to mount that back onto there. So we're mounted back on there. We're going to clip our control harness back into the main connector up the top, and then after we've plugged into the controls into our clock spring, we're now going to plug in the steering heating element, which just plugs in down the bottom. So now we're ready to put our T50 bolt back in. Lift your harness out of the way if it is in the way. Get that started. And then I'm going to use the gun just to tighten this up, just to save time. Nip up with your ratchet. So we're ready to mount our airbag. So we have our airbag connector and our horn. We pop the airbag connector in. We need to make sure when we clip this in that this orange tab is fully engaged and is flat. Otherwise, if it's not, we'll get an airbag light on the dash. So once you've plugged it in, just double check that you've got everything connected. So once we've got our airbag in, we've got two clips to make sure it's clipped in. We're going to put the battery back on, and we're going to make sure that the horn works, all our stalks and everything work as well. And then once we're happy with that, we're going to put the column and everything back together, and you can enjoy your new steering wheel. So we're ready to connect our battery back up. I'm going to start with the positive terminal, 12mm. Then we shall do our nice and tight, nothing loose, and we can drop the bonnet. So we have all the battery connected up. We're going to check the steering controls now, so just start the car. We want to make sure the airbag light is not on, and that our controls work. So our audio, put it to there, that's all good. Our cluster comes up. So we're happy everything's working. We're ready to fit our lower column back on. For that, we're just going to use that 7mm socket on our gun. So we'll slide this up, get it clipped in on one side, come round to the other, clip that in, make sure we're happy that these joins are all clipped in and nothing is sticking out. Get our adjuster, push our steering wheel back in and close our bottom tray. Clips in, simple as that. And that is the installation complete of our Carbon Fibre Steering Wheel.